How would you like to become the invisible hunter? If you're a whitetail fanatic, that would probably have to be at the top of your list. Probably number one. Getting to and from your stand or blind undetected is a challenge. How possible is it to fool the eyes and nose of a whitetail deer?
Fooling a whitetail's sense of smell can be a lot of work, but quite frankly, it is by far the most powerful weapon I have in my hunting arsenal.
Let me tell you, if you can do it, that's pretty cool.
I'm Steve Bartella.
I'm Gordy Cron.
I'm Mark Kaiser.
I'm Dan Schmidt, and this is Deer and Deer Hunting TV.
If only you could see how deer look at the world, to see things through their eyes. If you could, you'd probably be much more successful in the woods.
One of the big things that you have to understand is our line of sight is higher than a whitetail's. So lots of situations where you have, 4-foot tall brush, we're sitting there looking over. We think this is open. We think this is, there's not a lot of cover here, but you sink your eye level down to about 3 feet to the deer's level, and all of a sudden it's a different world. If you really want to get an appreciation for what the deer see, squat down. Squat down and look around, and now you essentially are looking through a whitetail's field of view.
How many times have you been sitting out in a stand and a deer comes out to feed, and all of a sudden that deer stops and picks its head up and starts looking, and it's looking across a 40-acre field. Did it hear something over there? Probably not. It probably saw something. Lo and behold, 1,000, 2,000, bam, another deer steps out. How did they do that? Their vision. Their vision is what gave them that opportunity to either see danger or see another deer coming. The more you understand about deer vision and how it works, the better you're going to be when you're out in your tree stand.
The vision of a deer is just one factor that goes into a successful hunt. Much of what you do to keep yourself concealed is another.
Even if you're camo, there's an outline of your body, so you need to be positioned so that you have something behind you that's breaking up that human form, because there's nothing that puts a deer on edge as quickly as seeing anything that is even remotely related to something that is human. I think scent control is really important when you're hunting whitetail deer, obviously because their nose is so sensitive. But there's no such thing, in my mind, as dead downwind. You still need to practice wind control. You still need to position yourself so that the deer does not get downwind to you, if possible. But I think that by using scent control, you get away with a lot of things that you wouldn't if you didn't use it. So, I'm religious about it. I spray down as soon as I leave the truck. I spray down again before I go up in my tree stand. I think it's really important to control the human odor. But you still need to pay a lot of attention to the wind, because that deer gets downwind of you, you're still going to get busted.
One of the biggest concepts that one must grasp to become an invisible hunter is that it does not matter what it is you bring in the woods with you, it has to be treated. That whitetail does not care if it's smelling your breath, if it's smelling your body odor, if it's smelling your glasses. All it knows is, I got a foreign odor that makes me uncomfortable, boom, I'm gone. It's pure reflexes on their part. When they smell something that their senses tell them it's bad, it's just like hitting their knee with a hammer, they're gone.
This baseball cap, it stinks. I don't know how many guys I see wearing their baseball cap out and about, and then into the whitetail woods. Come on, descent, all or none.
Mark Kaiser hunts the Dakotas and western states for big whitetail. That means limited cover and taking advantage of all elements in play.
This hunt really tested my invisibility factor. I was hunting in a standing sunflower field. It was dry, crackly, and noisy. There was no way through it except to go through it to get to my stand. So how did I stay invisible?
Deer and Deer Hunting Television is brought to you by Matthews Archery. Catch us if you can. Carbon Express. Shoot better with Carbon Express. Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry Technology. Apply, dry it, and go hunt. And by Nikon, the next generation of hunting optics. Coming up next.
It's amazing how many times I've had deer right at the decoy and they didn't even see it. They just walked right by. But if you give some grunts or throw some scent out there, it makes a deer look all the more intensely trying to find that other deer.
This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. In many cases, finding deer is the easy part. It's getting in and out of those areas undetected that's the difference between success or not.
Something else a lot of people don't think about is stand placement and the line of sight, where it is in relation to where a deer might be coming. There is no magical number. 20 feet, 22 feet, 25 feet, does not matter. Where is it in relation to the deer's eyesight? Is the deer coming off a ridge and your stand is 20 feet up, but it's almost at eye level with the deer? Big difference there. Deer's gonna see you.
If you watch the deer, they will tell you whether they're on edge or whether they're relaxed. When they're relaxed, especially if you got good back cover, you can get away with a lot more movement. Sure, you can't go like this, but you can get away with doing stuff like that a lot more. Another great trick is planting scrape trees. You plant a scrape, if you're hunting a field, you plant a scrape tree 20 yards out in front of your tree stand. The deer comes into it, they're working that scrape tree. By pointing those branches towards your stand, you know what? They're facing away when they're working.
There's no way you can make yourself completely invisible to a whitetail's eyes or a whitetail's nose. All you can do is do the best you can through scent control, through controlling your movements, through moving at the right times. Those little things will help you to become more successful as you try to fool those whitetail senses, those incredible whitetail senses.
Do you think you can fool the senses of a white-tailed deer? Hey, I think you can, and there's ways to get around their security system.
For Mark Kaiser, that security system is a huge sunflower field in central South Dakota. To keep from getting busted is a huge challenge, one that a seasoned hunter like Mark is up for anytime.
This hunt, I was hunting in a standing sunflower field. Deer were feeding adjacent to the sunflower field in several different other crops. That meant the deer were leaving that sunflower field at some point during the late day and returning, early to mid-morning. What I needed to do to get in there was to beat the deer in the morning before they got in. So I went in extra early. And I always prayed for a little bit of wind to cover my noise as I went down the rows. And in the afternoons, I simply just took a little longer nap after shooting light to make sure all the deer left and got out onto the field. That way I wasn't creating any type of ruckus and bumping into any deer that were still transitioning from the refuge of the standing sunflower field to the adjacent food source.
The deer are actually living in these sunflowers. They're bedding in them, but with this water source and the rigors of the rut, they're getting up to go get a drink of water, and that is your opportunity. These bucks are restless, it's the rut, they need water, all those things play to your favor.
That's when I really needed to make sure I had sprayed down, was wearing my rubber boots, and not touching any vegetation. And especially when I put my decoy out. I love decoy hunting, and I don't hardly hunt without it. So I was stashing my decoy at the ambush site, so I didn't have to go in and out rattling, making a lot more noise. And when I got there, I tiptoed through the brush, put my decoy out, careful not to touch any standing vegetation, and then back up in the tree. Using these key invisibility factors and all the descenting that I did prior to the actual hunt, it helped me get in on this sunflower buck. And this was some of the most exciting action I had had in a long time.
Coming up next.
Before you climb up in your stand, or even before you head out to your stand, you got to decide, how are you going to hunt today? Are you going to put out a scent wick? Are you going to do rattling? Are you going to put out a decoy? Those are things you have to decide before you get here.
This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Staying undetected in the woods starts at the truck, through the woods, and finally at the stand. Let's start at the beginning.
It's about mid-afternoon and I'm just prepping to go into my tree stand where I'll spend the rest of the afternoon and probably come out after dark. This is basically my last line of defense. I've done all the preparation. I've washed all my clothes in scent killer detergent. I've used body wash, shampoo. I've knocked down as much human odor as I can. And I want to do this so that I can get by the deer's nose, but I've also got to be sensitive to sound. So I'm going to take my time going in. I'm going to really try to just sneak in using the wind. I've got everything I need for the day in my day pack. I always carry it because there's always a certain amount of gear I like to have along with me, whether it's, you know, a scent wick, a sandwich, some water, just things I'm going to need on the stand. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak through the woods. I've left myself lots of time. I always leave myself lots of time. The last thing I want to do after I've knocked down as much scent as I can is create more scent by sweating. So I'm going to take my time. I'm going to walk really slowly. I'm going to have a loaded gun going in. I'm going to be still hunting my way in. So like I said, I've left myself plenty of time. I'm just going to take my time and get into my tree stand as quietly as I can.
The thing to remember is as soon as we head for the stand, we're hunting. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're talking about what firearm, a firearm or a bow for that matter. Now, we're hunting. We need to get to our stand without anything noticing. But if we have a shot opportunity, you know what? It sure helps to be ready. You have to play the wind when you're coming into your stand. This is an afternoon hunt. We have a food source over here. With the bedding up there, we need the wind blowing from the deer to us, away from the deer. Because, as I said, not only are we hunting, but we're getting to our stand nice and undetected. That means they can't smell us, they can't see us, and they can't hear us.
Well, we made it to the stand. You know, before you climb up in your stand, or even before you head out to your stand, you got to decide, how are you going to hunt today? Are you going to put out a scent wick? Are you going to do rattling? Are you going to put out a decoy? Those are things you have to decide before you get here. The last thing I want to do is make sure I'm completely scent free. It's a little warm walking out today, so I'm going to take some of these scent killer wipes, make sure I wipe down my hands and anything I touch, just in case the deer gets close. Let's head to the stand.
Mark Kaiser is in his element, bow hunting over a sunflower field in central South Dakota. It takes a lot to go undetected in a noisy environment like this, but Mark has a plan.
Like any archery hunt, you gotta put your time in. And these deer, even though they were coming into the sunflower field, it was a darn big field. It was nearly a section of standing sunflowers. It wasn't like they were just gonna walk by you as they came back from food and as they went out to food. Big bucks were passing by nearly every day. Some just out of bow range. Others in the obstacle of the standing sunflowers. You just couldn't shoot. There was too many stalks. But I put in my time, and that's what it takes bow hunting, spending as much time as possible. Me and my Matthews, we got to be pretty good friends talking with each other up in that tree. But eventually, a cold front moved in. The winds picked up, a little bit of snow was in the air, and that's what I like. Deer being pressured to feed because they know the weather's changing. Doe started spilling out into this opening, browsing on their way out of the sunflowers, and I knew sooner or later a buck would likely follow. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash. I put up my Nikons, and there was a buck charging those does. Well, they had dispersed, and he was scent trailing them right past my stand. The funny thing is, he was so immersed in the scent of the doe, he didn't even see my buck decoy. And as he got up broadside to me, he was booking it. I didn't even know if I was gonna get a shot, when suddenly he hit the brakes, and I knew he had seen my plastic friend. I drew back, got ready to shoot, and he was still moving at just a little bit of a gait as he was watching that buck on the edge of the sunflowers, but I let my arrow fly, and that was a wrap. A buck rolled in sight of my stand. Don't you just love that when you see the deer go down? There's none of this nervousness. Oh man, I got a blood trail. There's no blood trail in there. It's all horns laying in the sunflower. Staying invisible, it was key to this hunt. Trying not to make noise going through the sunflowers, trying to evade the deer and not bumping into them when they were moving, and being scent free as I put my decoy out. It all played a factor. It's a little bit of sweat equity to get the job done, but it's worth it when you can wrap your hands on antlers like those.
Coming up next, perfecting your setup in growing big and what you should be doing right now to get ready for the season. This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by Mossberg. Built rugged, proudly American. By Cuddyback, more deer, fewer blanks. Hunter's Safety System. Saving lives is what we do. By Analogics, protect your herd with the power of science. And by Block Vault, get locked in. Perfect your setup and grow 'em big. Here's Steve Bartilla.
On past episodes, what we've discussed is how important it is to understand what habitat improvement's all about, lay that foundation, set goals, all that good stuff. We're getting real close to getting out into the woods and actually starting to do some work. But before we do, what we absolutely positively have to do is we have to lay out a plan. You almost never go out in the woods, improve stuff, and have it work out well. It surely doesn't work out as well as it potentially could. How do you make it so that you lay your ground out, that your improvements are giving you maximum benefit? You design a plan before you make your very first improvement. So the very first question is, what do deer need? Because your plan really is as simple as offering deer everything they want and need better than they can get in the surrounding areas, and laying it out best for hunting. If you're going to remodel that whitetails world, gol darn it, you might as well do it so you make good, low impact tree stand locations that you can slip in and slip out. Why? Because one of the things those deer want and need is a feeling of safety. They want and need a feeling of safety, food, cover, water, comfort, breeding opportunities. If you can offer them those things better than they can get in the surrounding area anywhere else, you know what, those whitetails, they will spend a disproportionate amount of time on your ground. How are deer utilizing that property right now? Where's your funnels? And then remodel their world. Remodel their worlds so they have everything they could want, but also so that they produce high odds, low impact stand sites.